All right, let's see. Excellent, there we go. Hey everybody, my name is Nathan Smith and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for joining me today for Surf Secure. I hope you will really enjoy this class and get a lot out of it. Thanks for hanging out today. Before we get rolling, a couple of quick preliminary things that I like to get out of the way. First thing, first of all, of course, we've got a lot of cool stuff happening around the library system. As always, tons of events. There's some reading club. We have a lot of cool virtual events happening, including tomorrow night. We have Sarah Everts with us. That is going to be a virtual program on Zoom at 6:30 tomorrow night. Sarah Everts is a researcher. This program is called, she's going to be talking about her book, The Joy of Sweat, and kind of diving into talking about sweat. It's a whole book about it, and she has done a lot of research and is going to have, I think, a lot of interesting things to say. I'll be behind the scenes in the control room for that one, so join us tomorrow night for that, and take a look at cals.org and see what else is coming up too, because we've always got cool stuff coming down the pike. Also, the other big thing that I always like to say at the beginning of class is, if you have questions, please speak up and let me know. Don't worry about if it feels like sort of a silly question, or if you are, if you're not sure whether it's relevant, if it seems like it might be sort of a rabbit trail, all of that is fine. The main point of a technology class is to make sure that you learn useful stuff about technology. So if you're learning something useful related to the topic at hand, then we're good. Excuse me. That's what we want in a technology class. Even if I don't get to cover all of the points in my outline, that's still going to be a successful class in my book. And so please, if you have questions, speak up and let me know. Also, I'm doing this from home, so if you hear a little bit of ambient noise, that's okay. It'll be all right. If you have a question, speak up and let me know. The way you'll do that, excuse me, just a moment. If you have questions, what you'll want to do is head on down, if you're joining me here in Zoom, to the chat bubble at the bottom, the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Click on that chat, the little speech bubble down there, and type your questions in the chat box that pops up on the side. If you are joining me in Zoom on your mobile device, what you'll want to do is tap the middle of the screen, look for more in the corner, tap on that, and tap on chat in the menu that pops up, and you will be able to type your questions in there. If you're joining me on one of the live stream platforms, if you're on Facebook, just use the comments like you would on any other post on all of Facebook, and I'll see that and be able to respond there. I'll respond verbally, but that's how you'll want to do that. And then finally, if you are joining me on YouTube, what you'll want to do is look for the live chat, either out to the side of the video. Oh, excuse me. It's still morning, y'all. Look for the live chat out to the side of the video, or down below if you're on a mobile device. So let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, this is Surf Secure. In this class, we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about ways to keep your yourself a little safer online, because the online world is much like the real world. There's a lot of fantastic stuff that you can find. The whole world's waiting for you. There's tons of stuff that can happen out there in the real world that is really exciting. And there's also some dangerous stuff that can happen. So you want to always be mindful of your surroundings and take some of those common sense steps to stay safe. Now, the common sense steps to stay safe in the real world are things like locking your doors when you leave the house, or that's one example. There are a lot of other things, but regardless, there are lots of those sorts of things that you can do to keep yourself reasonably safe out in the world. Of course, nobody can stay 100% safe either online or in person, and so you want to be mindful of that as well. But most of the time, you can mitigate the majority of the risk that's out there just by using some common sense. And so that's what I want to show you today. So let me go ahead and fire up the screen sharing here, and we will dive into that. Here we go. All right, excellent. So there we have it. There's our little title slide. We'll move forward to the next one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it the fancy way, since this is since this is a PowerPoint presentation. I'm normally not doing a whole lot of PowerPoint presentations. Nah, okay, let's just leave it as is. Okay, cool. So here's our little title slide. Let's go ahead and move to the next one. Okay, so there are a lot of ways that there are, just like, again, any place, there are some bad actors online. And some of those bad actors, a lot of those bad actors use a variety of tactics to get a hold of your information. But one of the biggest things to think about is the majority of the time, someone who's trying to scam you online or get into your information or whatever is not really doing it in a technological way, in the way you might be picturing. So a lot of times you will, when you see a movie, like there's there's like the crack team that's trying to infiltrate whatever, and they have the genius hacker kid who gets on their computer and types, starts typing away furiously. And there's, when you look at their screen, it's just a black screen with a bunch of text moving around on it and stuff. And, within 5 minutes, they've hacked into the Pentagon and redirected the missiles or whatever. So in real life, it basically never works that way. In real life, the way that a bad actor will try to get your information is by targeting you, by targeting the human person whose information it is, rather than trying to find a weakness in the technology and break through. Because there are lots of people who spend a lot of time and effort on trying to make your online life secure. And so in order to, and people for the most part are capable of incredible effort, but we also have a tendency to be lazy when we can. And so most people who are trying to take advantage of folks online are not trying to find a gap in the firewall and push the bits through or whatever. What they're trying to do is get you to give them information that can be useful, or even better, just hand them your money. So we call that social engineering. Social engineering basically just means rather than working the technology angle to crack into something, you are working the people angle. You're using social strategies to try and gain someone's trust, or manipulate their emotions somehow to get them to do what you want them to do. So this is an example of social engineering that I found online that I thought was a pretty good illustration of what I'm talking about. So obviously, this is kind of just a fake email with generic details, but it can help you understand what kinds of things a social engineer might be trying to do. So this is from grandson to grandma. Subject: help, house flooded. Hi, grandma. We had a pipe break and have to stay in a hotel for the next few days. Any chain you could help us cover the cost? It would be easiest if you just send it directly to my bank account number 123456789. Love, your grandson. Now, a social engineer of any skill is going to replace some of these generic things like your grandson with actual details that make it seem more realistic, like the name of a grandson, because that's something that you could find out pretty easily with a little bit of research. But it's hopefully clear what this is trying to do. So the scammer is emailing the grandma, pretending to be the grandson, and asking for money in a way that's designed to sort of short circuit grandma's her sort of logical basically it's designed to use her emotions to bypass her logic and say get her to send the money as quickly as possible. So obviously this is not the grandson's account number. This is the scammer's account number. And once the money is transferred there, then the scammer has the money, and the grandma is out, however much cash that ends up being. So in this type of situation, what you're so the scammer is basically looking to trigger some kind of a gut emotional response, a sort of fear, like, oh, what if my grandson runs out of money before he can pay the hotel bill? Or what if, what if my grandson and his family are like, are out on the street somewhere or whatever. It's trying to sort of push on that fear and that pity and that that familial connection between the grandmother and the grandson. So this is a really so assuming that this were filled in with more with a little more believable details, this could be really effective. And what you want to do is, and in order to avoid this, first of all, you want to kind of think through like exactly what's going on, because if the grandma just gets this email and goes, oh man, I better send that money right away, and then hops to her online banking account or is off to the bank in person to wire the money, then she's already kind of had. One of the things that a scammer like this will try to do is is add some sort of time frame to the situation so that you're not worrying about, or so that you're thinking, oh, I have to do something about this right away. And so if you're contacted by someone you don't know who says you have to do something right away, that in of itself is a red flag. You don't, if someone is telling you that something is urgent, it has to be done immediately, then you want to, alarm bells should go off right then, because because they want you to do it right away so that you don't have the chance to think about it too much and actually figure out what's going on. So this is an example of how that might be happening. Now, they might try to spoof the email address of the grandson so that it looks like it comes from him. In a situation like this, the easiest way to go would simply be to call the grandson first and say, like, I got this email from you. Is everything okay? Or whatever. Whoops, wrong button. Once she has a chance to talk with the grandson, or even just text him or something, then she'll pretty quickly find out, yeah, that wasn't real. So that's what social engineering is. It's designed to use your emotions to get you to make quick decisions and that gives the scammer the upper hand. So let's talk about a few other, or a few specific kinds of social engineering that you find pretty regularly on online, that you can avoid. So one of these is what we call a phishing scam, with a PH here, phishing. When we talk about this, what we're referring to is basically it's a trick to get your account information of some sort. So a lot of times in a situation like this, what'll happen is people will set up fake websites with addresses that are similar to the website that you might be familiar with, or that look official even though they're not. Or they might send you an email. For example, in this case, you might get an email that says, it seems like someone's logged into your account without your permission. Click here to reset your Facebook password. So somebody clicks on that and they get to a Facebook, or they get to what looks like a Facebook page right here. If they type in their email address or their phone number here, and they type in their password, then they've just given the scammers the password to their Facebook account. And if they're like a lot of people, we'll talk about this a little bit later. If they're like a lot of people, then they probably have used, then they probably have used the password for their Facebook account for other things, such as their email address or even their online banking account. So so they've given the scammers a lot of access just by following that link in the email. So the first way that we can avoid this is by not clicking links in emails unless it's from unless it's something you're expecting or from someone that you know. So, for example, obviously, someone might send you a link to a website. Excuse me. they want you to check out, that sort of thing. That can be perfectly fine. Although you might want to, particularly if the website then prompts you to log into something, you might want to check with that person and say, hey, was it really you that sent me this? And just confirm it with them independently. You also might want to, so that's one way that you can sort of have a, so that's one instance where it's, it's reasonable to sort of, to click on a link in an email. But if you get an email from Facebook saying that your account seems to be compromised, or if you get an email that you weren't expecting from from a service provider, from your cell phone company saying that your bill's overdue or things like that, then in those types of situations, particularly if it's not not on the schedule that you normally receive, like, okay, your bill's ready kind of notifications via email, then rather than clicking links that are provided to you in those emails, what you might want to do is actually not click the link and instead just go to your web browser and type in the address for whatever the website is. So if you get an email saying that your Facebook account could be compromised, then just go directly to Facebook, type facebook.com in the address bar up here at the top, press enter, and you'll, and get there that way. What that's going to do is, and then once you log in, you'll be able to, then you'll be able to see, like, there should be notifications from, if you got a notice that your bill was overdue from your cell phone provider, you log into your online account management from them. And there should be a notification that says, hey, your bill is overdue. There'll probably be a big old number somewhere on the screen when you first sign in that says, here's your balance. And so then you can confirm whether or not that's accurate. Because if you click the link that says, oh, your bill is 20 days past due, click here to pay your balance, then probably what's going to happen is they're going to prompt you to log in to your account. And then they might even take your credit card information while they're at it. So try to click links in emails as much as you can. It's usually a better practice instead to go directly to the website in question and log into your account that way. Once you've clicked a link in an email, though, there's still, a lot of times there are still plenty of ways to avoid, being had. In this particular instance, this person already clicked on the suspicious link, but there's still time for them to not fall into the phishing trap here. And that can be done by looking at the top here of their web browser and seeing what's going on there. So let me show you what I mean. Right here, so there's gray text all around it, but right here there's this kind of the rest of it's gray. This particular part right here says fbsettings-recovery.com. And then we've got some other stuff here. By the way, they spelled system wrong here, which is kind of funny. But if you're not watching for this, then this just looks like any other Facebook login page. Well, admittedly, this looks like the old Facebook login page. But up here at the top, if you look at this, it's fbsettings-recovery.com, which is obviously different from facebook.com. If I go to facebook.com, I'm actually going to see that in black up there rather than my fbsettings-recovery.com. So if I go to a website and I'm expecting it to be Facebook, and then I see this up here, I know that that's not the right address for where I'm trying to get to. And that can give me a clue. This seems suspicious to me. So I might just type in facebook.com and then go to my, if I'm trying to reset my password or whatever, I'll go directly to facebook.com and then click like forgot password or whatever the case may be. So you can always look up here. This area, by the way, is what we call the domain name. So it's something.com or something.org or something.pizza. Yes, that is a real one. But if you know the address of the website that you're trying to visit, then you can get there by just or if you know the address of the website that you're trying to visit, then if you've clicked a link from somewhere and you're not sure that you're in the right place, you can look at that. You can look at that address up at the top and see at a glance whether you're in the right place or not. There's also this little green lock here. Now they've gone to some additional trouble on this particular site to sort of verify their presence here. But you'll notice it's just https:// and then there's a lock here. So so on websites back in the day, a few years ago, they would all, rather than HTTPS, they would all just say HTTP://. The S stands for secure or security. And over here, this little lock verifies essentially what this is telling you is that the website that you seem to be on is the website that you're actually on. Now it's not saying, yes, this is Facebook. What it's saying is it looks like you're on fbsettings-recovery.com. And in fact, you are on that website. So these people, as I said, went to some additional trouble. But some websites, basically, if you're ever being asked to enter a password and you look up at the top and there's no lock there, or the lock is like open and it's red or whatever, and you don't have this HTTPS in the address, then that is potentially a cause for concern. That tells you that the website that you're on is not using any sort of encryption so when you send information through, it's not going to be encrypted. Anyone who's between you and that and that website on the internet could see the information that you're sending in plain text. And it also means that this website hasn't verified their identity. So so those are some things that you can watch for. Don't type in your password or any sort of credit card information if you don't see a little lock up in the corner. And if you're about to log into a website, just glance up at the top really quick and make sure it's actually the website you intended to log into. So fbsettings-recovery.com is nothing. Facebook.com is where you're trying to go. So you probably want to just type facebook.com in here, press enter, and go directly to that website. Okay, so let's talk about another very common thing, and that is tech support scams. Tech support scams can take a couple of different forms. So sometimes they will call you. So you'll get a call from a number. It may even be a toll-free number or something like that. And they'll claim to be someone from Dell who is, or from Apple, or someone from, Microsoft, or whoever, who says like, oh, we've noticed that there's a virus on your computer, or it seems like your computer is not up, your software is not up to date. You could have a problem there or something, but we can help you fix it. And so with a lot of people, particularly if they're not familiar with technology, that can induce a certain amount of panic, because you're like, well, oh man, my computer has a virus. That's a big problem. I've heard of people who get their bank accounts drained or things like that when their computer has a virus. And so then as they're talking to the person about, well, what can I do to fix it? Then the person says, oh, we can help you. we do have there is a one-time fee of $125 or whatever. And so they'll take your credit card information. And then usually what they'll do is they'll walk you through a process where they can take remote control of your computer. Usually they're not interested in remotely controlling your computer for a long time or actually planting viruses or anything on there. Usually what they'll do is they'll do they'll do the digital version of a little dog and pony show for you, and make a big make a big show of sort of removing the virus from your computer. And then they will once that's done, then you'll be good to go. And they won't they will have $125 of your money, or however much they're charging for their services. So that's one form of the tech support scam. One way I can definitely set your mind at ease is, depending on how you think about it, is the real Dell or Microsoft or Apple or HP or whoever does not know if you have a virus on your computer or not. They cannot tell you that. They might at best be able to walk you through the steps of figuring out whether you have it, but they don't know. And they're certainly not going to call you on the phone about it. So if you get a call from someone who claims that your account is compromised or that your computer has a virus or any of those sorts of things, you can just tell them to have a nice day and hang up. So that's one form of the tech support scam. The other one is a variation. It's kind of interesting. And it's this. You'll see this warning. Your computer may be at risk, and they give a big old number for tech support. So what's happening here is you've stumbled across a website that is trying to pretend to be antivirus software on your computer. So it says, system may have found 2 viruses that pose a serious threat. rootkit.cyrf.spy/trojan.fakeav-download. Your personal and financial information may not be secured. So what's happening here is they're giving you a phone number, and then you call their tech support and say, oh no, it looks like my computer has a virus. And they walk you through the process of connecting remotely to your computer. And then they do the dog and pony show and show you how, and pretend to remove the virus from your computer. Everyone is, pretends to be relieved, and you have been relieved of, $125 or whatever. So, if you get something like this as you're browsing around the internet, it's not going to show up as a big old full screen web page like this. If you get an alert from your actual antivirus software, it's going to appear in a little window or perhaps a little notification down in the bottom of your screen. But it's not going to be something like this. If you look at all this red and the big old like caution sign here and stuff like that, all of this is designed to induce panic, basically. But your real antivirus software is designed to not induce panic. It's designed to help you calmly remove the malicious software from your computer. So if you get something that seems designed to induce panic, then it probably is a scam. The thing about it is, if you're online and you're seeing something like this that seems to be threatening you in some way, either like telling you like, oh, there's a big problem, like that you're unsafe, or trying to get you, basically, if something's trying to get you scared or maybe really angry also, induce some kind of panic or immediate sort of sadness and those sorts of things. You want to be mindful of that. That's not to say that nothing that makes you scared or sad online is real. Far from it. There are many scary and sad things you find online, unfortunately. But those scary and sad things are not going to be they're not going to be designed to induce panic in you if they're real, generally speaking. So just look at so when you see something like this, be mindful. If something on your computer tells you to call a phone number, that's also very weird. So I wouldn't I definitely wouldn't call this phone number. And if you see something like this inside your web browser, just take a look at it. Like your web browser is not antivirus software, and it's not going to warn you about something like this. Okay, speaking of web browsers, let's talk about something else here. So, your browser has these really useful tools called extensions or add-ons and notifications that you can use. So the way that, so let's talk about both of those things. First, we'll talk about extensions or add-ons. Extensions or add-ons, depending on what web browser you're using, are additional software that you can install on top of your web browser to make it do cool things. I have a bunch of these myself. And so extensions in and of themselves are not bad. And they're not necessarily harmful. In fact, they can be really helpful. And I'm going to tell you about some of them here in a few that I would recommend. But some web browser extensions are malicious software that's designed to, at the very least, serve you a bunch of ads so they can make a lot of money as advertisers while annoying you to death. At worst, though, some malicious extensions might try to steal your personal information. So you want to be careful with these. First of all, you want to install these add-ons and extensions only from the sort of extension or add-on or app store for your web browser. So for example, if you use Google Chrome, which is what most folks use, there's something called the Chrome Web Store, and the software that's there is at least somewhat vetted by Google, and so you're more likely to get something reputable there. The worst of the worst have sort of been weeded out from those places. And Microsoft has a similar thing for Microsoft Edge, and so on and so forth. I use Mozilla Firefox. They have a nice Firefox add-ons website as well. If you go to just any old website, though, then it shouldn't be prompting you to install an extension in your web browser, generally speaking. For example, this particularly suspicious version of this is this site says to continue the work of your browser, you should install the extension. And so it's trying to get you to install this extra software on top of your computer. I've seen this a lot with like little reader extensions or news extensions. I've seen a lot of like spam. What else? There's weather stuff, a lot of things like that. And none of those would be necessarily bad things to have. But again, if you go to a website and immediately it's asking you to install the extension, then it's probably not a good website and you should probably get out of there. Um, this one is like giving us a little pop-up, and then it says system alert, add extension in order to keep you in safe browsing. So watch also for the level of how should I put this? Legitimate companies are going to have people that work at them who know how to write sentences. This is not a sentence, add extension in order to keep you in safe browsing. There's not even a period there. And this period has a space in between the N and the period. Obviously, everybody has a typo every now and then. So that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But all of those typos together, the fact that this doesn't seem to be written by someone who speaks English can tip you off that maybe there's something going on here, that maybe this is not the best possible, maybe this is not the safest piece of software to install. In general, you want to have a specific reason why the extension or the software is being installed in your web browser. It should add some additional functionality that your web browser can't do on its own, not just enable you to visit a website or something like that, or get some piece of information. If all you're being promised from the extension is you'll be able to use this website or you'll be able to access this particular piece of information, then that's not a good enough reason to install the extension. So be mindful of that. And if it prompts you to install something, question why before you do it. Okay. Come on now. All right. There we go. Okay. So there are also notifications, and this is something you'll see from time to time, a lot of different places. Some websites, when you visit them, it'll say something, something, something wants to show notifications. And you have the option of clicking block or allow. If you, on certain websites, you might want to use this notification setup. For example, at work, we use Microsoft Teams. And if you're using Teams in your web browser, it's kind of a messaging and collaboration service. So if you're using it inside of your web browser rather than installing the sort of standalone software, then you'll want to turn notifications on, so that if somebody sends you a message, you'll see it down in the corner of your screen there, and you'll be able to respond to them, or at least figure out whether you need to respond to that person. If you click on, if you click allow, then this website is going to be able to send you messages of some sort. If you click block, then they're not going to be able to. So something like Microsoft Teams or Slack, things like that, even your email might, the website that hosts your email might ask to send you notifications, so that, excuse me, you can get one when you receive a new email. But there are a lot of other websites that want to do this. For example, news blogs and things like that. If you click allow on them, at best, what's going to happen is you'll be notified a few times a day of new stories that they post or whatever. But a lot of times what's going to happen is they're going to spam you with ads, and or they're just going to give you a lot of additional input that you don't necessarily need. Personally, I find it pretty distracting when I get a notification and it turns out to be just like, someone sending me an email that I don't care about, or that sort of thing. If I want to know whether I have email, I'll go and check my email. And I do that quite frequently, but I don't need, generally speaking, I don't need to know right then when I have an email. And so we have, and so generally speaking, when you see something like this, usually you want to click block. I've had a lot of folks come to classes that I've taught and things like that, where they've said like, oh, I keep getting these ads down in the corner of my screen. And what that is notifications that they're receiving from some website where they just clicked allow on this message without really reading it. And the website started sending them a bunch of ads to make ad money. So if you've already turned something on like this, what do you do? Well, let me show you. Okay, so actually, let me switch over to Chrome here. All right. Okay, cool. So here we are in Facebook. Okay, let me switch my screen sharing over. Okay, so here we are inside of Chrome. I'm on Facebook right now. I'm going to come up to the top in order to change my settings. I'm going to come up to the top here, click on this little lock up here where it says view site information, and I have notifications. I already have mine for Facebook on block here, but if I didn't, it would either be on allow or ask default, and I could choose any of those three options. So ask is going to be every time I visit the website, it's going to prompt me, do you want this website to send you notifications? Yes or no. You can click block or allow. Similarly, there are your extensions here, these little add-ons. The easiest way to get rid of one of those is find its icon. So there are two up here that are visible. If I click on this little puzzle piece, then it'll show me more. And all I need to do is find the one that I'm interested in. Whoops. Find the one that I'm interested in. If it's in this little menu, then I'll click the ... and I'll click remove from Chrome, and that'll get rid of it. If the one that I'm concerned about, get out of here, is one of these icons, I'll click with the right mouse button on it. Or if you're on a laptop, you can tap with 2 fingers on the touchpad, and I'll click remove from Chrome right there. And that's going to get rid of those for you, so you don't have to worry about that happening. And honestly, if you're not sure whether you have add-ons or extensions that you don't need, then you might just open up your web browser and take a look in this little list and just see whether that's whether there's something here that you need to get rid of. Okay, cool. So let me switch the screen sharing back to the slideshow, and we'll shift gears a little bit here. All right, great. So now what we're doing, or now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I've got my, oh, right. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show my, or I'm going to talk a little bit about the oops, sorry, about passwords. So passwords are pretty important. Obviously, we use them to get into most things online, and it's really important to have secure ones. There are a couple of different ways to do that, but the best way to start out is to talk about what constitutes a secure password in the first place. So, a secure password. So a secure password has a few different characteristics that are pretty important. First of all, it's long. So let me show you why. So if I have a 7-character password like this, of course, this is a terrible password, A, B, C, D, E, F, G in the first place. But assuming that I had a password that was, that was a real word, and was 7 characters long, or any string of characters, 7 characters long. If a computer is going by brute force, which basically means it's trying different possible combinations until it gets the right one. If a computer is going by brute force, and someone's trying to get into your account, a 7-digit or a 7-character password can be cracked by a modern computer in about 0.29 milliseconds. So I'm guessing that's 0.29 seconds, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, it can be cracked extremely quickly. So it's not going to take a computer long to run through all of the possibilities and get to the one that's actually the password. If you go up to 8 characters long, though, and this is why I say a secure password is long, it can take a modern computer up to 5 hours to crack that. So we're getting a little more secure. Now, that doesn't mean any 8-character password is going to take 5 hours to crack. It means it could take up to 5 hours to crack. So you want to be careful, and so you still want to follow the other, you want to follow some other best practices in addition to making your password longer. But you can see makes a huge difference here. Okay, if you have a 9-character password, it might take a modern computer up to 5 days to crack it. Again, that's not a guarantee that it will take 5 days, but it's a possibility that it could take up to that long. For 10 characters, it could be up to 4 months. For 11 characters, it could be up to 10 years. And for 12 characters, it could be up to 200 years. Generally speaking, most security experts right now, because again, that's not a guarantee, it's just showing you how much it increases the complexity and therefore the amount of time that could be required to crack it when you increase the length of the password. So most security experts right now recommend around 16 characters as a good length for a password. And that sounds super long, but let me show you how to make that pretty easy to do. Okay, here's my little rule of thumb. Now I'm going to show you how to build a password. It's not going to be my password. I've never used this password ever anywhere. So don't even try it because you're going to be wasting your time. And obviously, it would be very silly of me to show a real password here on in public in a technology class. But I'm going to show you a way to build a nice secure password that you can actually remember. So first of all, the length is important. So we want to think about something that's long enough, right? So this is a lyric from a song. One is the loneliest number. I don't particularly care for that song, but it is a lyric from a song, and I do know part of the song because I have been alive for a few decades now, and so I know this song, and that makes it easy to remember this line here. I always think of a line with a number because most places when you're creating a password, they're going to require you to have at least a mix of letters and numbers, at least one number in there. A lot of places are also going to require you to have a symbol. So you want to think about passwords that you can create that are going to have all of those possibilities, or that where you're going to be able to put all of those in there. And we'll talk about how to include symbols and so forth later on. But one key thing to think about here in general is you've got the most secure passwords are going to have some combination of letters, numbers, and symbols, and they're going to have a mix of capital letters and lowercase letters. The reason for that is if you use all lowercase letters, no numbers, and no capitals, and those are, all lowercase letters and no numbers and no symbols, you've got a very small pool of possibilities there. So there are only, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. And so for each character that you have in your password, there are only 26 possibilities. And so the computer, because it's so good at math, it's basically a giant calculator, can run through all those possibilities really, really quickly. But if you add in a number, then you're, since it's a numerical character, you're adding an additional 10 possibilities for each character that's in your password. If you add capitals, you're adding another 26 possibilities, because in addition to lowercase letters, you're also looking at uppercase letters, and the computer considers those to be two different things. And if you add in symbols, then you're adding a bunch of additional possibilities. Computer can make all sorts of symbols. And so you're creating a very large pool of possibilities that a computer that's trying to crack your password could potentially choose from. So you want to have it be varied like that. So a song lyric is easy to remember and it's long enough. This is a bunch of characters, like 20 something characters at least. So first of all, because I need a number, I'm going to change the word 1 to the numeral 1. And honestly, because this is so long, I'm actually just going to trim it down a little bit to just this. Next, what I'm going to do is capitalize a word that's not normally capitalized. So if I have someone's, if it's a lyric with a name in it or a place name, things like that, I'm not going to try and capitalize those words. Typically, I'm going to capitalize a random word of some sort. So now I have numbers, uppercase letters, and lowercase letters, but I still need some symbols, and usually spaces are not allowed. And plus they make it kind of, it's spaces would be kind of an easy one to guess if spaces were allowed. So to add some symbols, you can just replace the spaces with a symbol, just like that. So what that's going to do is that's going to give us a nice long password. I think this is 17 characters, something like that. It's got a number, it's got symbols, it's got capital letters, and it has lowercase letters. So there's a nice variety of characters in there. And this is a nice long password. So you can do so it's easy to remember, but it's difficult to crack. One other thing that makes this useful would make it difficult to crack. And one thing that you want to think about is part of the reason that this would, even though I will never use it for a real password, one of the reasons that this could potentially work as a good password for me is that it's not a particularly it's not a song that's particularly associated with me in any way. And so if someone thinks of me, they're probably, even if they know me well, they're probably not going to think about this song, because I don't really care about this song. And so so that can make a big difference in terms of just sort of how you would in terms of whether this password would work or not. Because if it's a song that if I'm like famous for liking a particular song, it's important that I not use that as my password. If everybody's like, oh yeah, that song's Nathan's favorite, he loves it, it's on his license plate, like that's not a good password. But all of us know tons and tons and tons of songs. And so there are plenty of songs that you can think of that aren't going to be associated with you in anybody's mind, but that you know the lyrics to. And that's one other key factor for a secure password. So secure passwords are long. They have a mixture of letters, of lowercase letters, uppercase letters, numbers, and symbols. But they're easy to remember so that you don't lose them and have to reset them all the time. But also, a secure password, it's going to be something that's not easy to guess. A lot of folks will use things like their name, their children's names, their anniversary date, the date of the birth, their child's birthday, the name of their dog, all sorts of things, lots of things that can either be discovered through public records or can be found through a quick glance at the person's social media accounts or whatever. So stuff like that is really bad to use in passwords because it's very easy for someone to guess. And so, if someone puts the name of the name of my street in with my birthday or something like that, and like that's a pretty good combination that might well get them into my accounts if I were using passwords like that. And so so you want to avoid stuff like that. The names of people, the names of your, or the name of your street, the name of or the your addresses, your your anniversary, your birthday, whatever. Don't use any of those things in your passwords because it's not safe to do that. So this is nice because it's not anything to do with me. All right. So let's move on to talk about something else. So passwords can be really secure, but you want to be, but a lot of times they can get out there. Sometimes, you create a password and it can be sort of leaked out by various, means. Someone getting into, some other service that you have an account with, things like that. And so another really useful tool that can help you is what's called two-factor authentication or two-step verification, multi-factor authentication, all sorts of things like that. All of those basically mean the same thing. And what it is it's an additional little step to make sure that you are you. So this is what a password is designed for initially, is to make sure you are you. So when you go to a particular website and you're wanting to sign in, you type in your email address. When you type in your email address, what that says is, hey, it's me, Nathan, in my case, let me in, right? But then the password says, it's me and I can prove it. Here's the password. Only you and I website know this password. And so once I type in the password, then I'm in. But that's not necessarily super duper secure. And so a really good way to keep things extra secure is by adding another layer on top of that. That is two-step verification or two-factor authentication. Excuse me. In addition to something like your password, two-factor authentication also verifies you with something you have. So most of the time, that something is your phone. If I have when I want to log into my Google account, what happens is I will type in my email address, my Gmail, email address. I'll type in my password, and then it'll come up with a little thing that that asks or that says, okay, go to your phone and look at it. So I go to my phone, I unlock it, and then there's a little screen on my phone that says, hey, it looks like you're trying to sign in on this computer that's seems to be located near Little Rock, Arkansas. Is that you? And I just tap yes on my phone. And then on my computer, it goes, oh, yep, that's him. And it logs me in. So that's a little bit more work, but it's a lot safer, because if someone else is, let's say somebody in North Carolina or something, gets a hold of my email address and my password, and they go to Google and they type all that in, then the next thing that's going to happen is a little thing's going to pop up and it's going to say, hey, are you trying to sign in? There's this computer in North Carolina that that's signing in as you. Is that really you? That'll pop up on my phone screen, and I can just tap no, and then they don't get into my account, even if they know my password. So that makes your account super secure, because they don't have, because while they might have figured out my password, they still don't have my phone, and they would need that in order to get into the rest of my stuff. If they, so two-factor authentication can work a bunch of different ways. That's one, that particular setup is called Google Prompt that I just described. But you can also do things like there's the Google Authenticator app. I'm just using Google as an example. A lot of different services have these types of options available. And wherever there is this option available, I definitely recommend you use it. There's an app that'll basically show you a little one-time code. And when you go into the app, there'll just be a code that stays on screen for 30 seconds or a minute or so. You type in the code on your computer, and then you're in. You can also do things like, or there's also a lot of places do, and this is not the best way to do it, but a lot of places do this through text messages. So they'll send a text message to your phone with a one-time code. You type in that code, and you're in. There's also there are also even physical security keys. So it kind of looks like a little flash drive that stores your information on it, but instead of storing information, what it does is act as a second factor of verification for you. So you type in your email address, you type in your password, and then you literally plug this USB thing into your computer to say, hey, yeah, it's me, I'm signing in. And then you're logged in. So there are a bunch of different ways you can do this. Any service that you use that has this, like I said, I definitely recommend using it, because then even if someone gets a hold of your password, they still can't get into your stuff. And that's pretty awesome. Speaking of, another thing that you can use to make your passwords more secure is to use what's called a password manager. A password manager is a type of software that allows you to keep track of all your passwords pretty automatically and fill them in for you automatically too. So it's a really handy piece of software to have. I definitely recommend it to everybody. The one that I personally use is called Bitwarden. It's free and open source, which is nice because It means that security experts can analyze what makes it actually work behind the scenes and ensure that it's safe. The way that this works is you install it inside of your web browser. So I showed you earlier my my Chrome window there, and I have the Bitwarden thing installed. Let me switch back to that again. There you are, Chrome. So I have the extension installed right up here, and I'm not going to click on it because it's going to it would show some of my credentials, and I'm not logged into it in Chrome anyway, because normally I use Firefox. But if I click on this when I'm visiting a specific website, then it will show in a little drop-down accounts related to that specific website, and I can just click on. Usually, I can just click on the name of that. Usually, I can just click on the name of that website in the or that account, I should say, in the menu, and it will fill in my email address or username and password right there without me having to do anything. When I'm creating a new account or when I need to update an existing account, it will also generate random passwords for me, which is really cool because now that since I'm using this to keep track of all my passwords, I don't have to worry about the passwords being something that would be practical to type most of the time. And so so when I have a random password, so it generates a random password for me. There's nothing to guess at. There's no possibility that they could crack it. There's no song for them to think about and go, oh, maybe it's that or whatever. There's nothing to hold on to. It's just random letters, numbers, and symbols. And so when I'm sitting at my computer or I have the mobile app installed on my phone, then I could just tap a couple of buttons or click a couple of things, and it'll fill that password right in. I don't even have to think about it. And I don't even have to know what my passwords are for most of the accounts that I use because my password manager will fill them in for me. And it's stored in an encrypted form on the other side, on the Bitwarden servers, the computers that store, that make their service run. So even if they, get hacked, or if they, or if they, some government wants my passwords or whatever, they won't be able to access that because it's been encrypted using a password that I set up. And so, so no one who, if there's anyone who has that, so only a person with that master password is going to be, would be able to access my account and decrypt the rest of the passwords that are in there so they can get in the rest of my stuff. So it's very, very secure and just makes life easier. It makes it easier to stay safer, which is always what you want. And it just makes it easier because you don't even have to type your passwords in most of the time. So that's really handy. Now, I will say, you do have to keep up with the master password that's associated with your password manager. If you don't, you will be one of those people that's locked out of your password vault as well. So, so you do want to make sure you have that and you memorize it and keep it somewhere safe. But that's really the only downside to that. Okay, so another thing, let's talk about another extension that I really like, and there are other pieces of software like this. This is the one that I use personally, but you can look at others as well. But I use this this add-on called Privacy Badger. And Privacy Badger, what it does is it's created by a nonprofit organization called the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The EFF is a really cool nonprofit organization that's about essentially defending your civil rights online. So making sure that you have the right, that you have the right to privacy, that you have the right to do the things that you want to do with your electronics, and so on and so forth. So they're a very, very good organization. I definitely feel good supporting them. But they use this particular, or they have this particular piece of software called Privacy Badger. As you surf around the internet, a lot of times companies that want to advertise to you are keeping track of where you're going online. Most of the time, they're not doing it so they can spy on you specifically. But they are trying to sort of build a profile of you so that they can advertise to you more in a more targeted fashion. So, using an add-on or an extension like Privacy Badger basically breaks a lot of that tracking software that these types of ad companies use, and that makes it harder for them to discover things about you, harder for your information to leak out to various places, and protects you to a certain extent from the creepiest of creepy ads that you might see around the internet. So definitely definitely encourage you to check that out, or similar types of extensions like Ghostery and so forth. One last piece of one last type of service that I definitely recommend you consider is what's called a VPN, or virtual private network. A VPN, basically, what this is it's kind of a tunnel for the data that you're transmitting through the internet. So if you go somewhere like a coffee shop, normally what's going to happen is you connect to their Wi-Fi, and through just, you basically just find their, if you sit down with your laptop, you open it up, basically just going to find their Wi-Fi network, click on it, and then you're connected, right? There's no password or anything like that. The fact that there's no password when you're connecting to that, network, also means that that the information you're sending back and forth over that, over that internet connection is not encrypted. In other words, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to be pretty easily accessible to people who know what they're doing if they're connected to the same network you are. Now, some of it still is going to be encrypted. I talked about the little HTTPS, the secure. Let me go back there really quick. The little lock up here at the top. I talked about that briefly earlier. If you see that, that does mean that the information you're transmitting to that specific website is encrypted. But if you go to the coffee shop and you're browsing websites, they may not be able to see your password and stuff. But the company that runs the coffee shop, or at least your internet, or at least their internet service provider, knows every website that you're visiting and is able to access information that that's not encrypted as it's transmitted through that Wi-Fi. And of course, if you go to places with certain with less privacy restrictions, the local government might also be able to get a hold of that information. So if you're traveling somewhere where the government is maybe a little more authoritarian, you might also You might also be subject to some oversight from them. So that's why VPNs can be pretty useful. So here are three popular ones. There are a bunch of others, but NordVPN is one of the higher rated ones, generally speaking. ExpressVPN is a little less expensive, but still very highly rated. And TunnelBear actually has a free version that allows you to do a little bit of or to use a little bit of the service, but then a less limited version that's a little bit faster and allows you to use the service more. So if you're connecting frequently to public Wi-Fi, particularly if it's particularly if it's just out and about somewhere, if you're going to the coffee shop regularly to use your laptop, things like that, then a VPN is really, really important because it's going to protect a lot of your information from snooping and from bad actors. So yeah, that's about it. Are there any questions before we wrap it up for today? All right, I'm not seeing anything. If you do have questions, feel free to email me. The email address is digital@cals.org, digital@cals.org. And again, I just want to leave you with, with some encouragement here. Obviously, whenever you're talking about things like internet safety, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of fear there, and that's perfectly understandable. For a lot of folks, it seems very mysterious, and it's kind of, it's very easy to visualize someone, someone like someone kind of breaking a window and coming into your house, but it's really hard to visualize a lot of the types of things that are risky online and why exactly they are. So I hope I've illuminated some of that for you. But I just want to say, like, the internet there are tons of useful things. So you're using the internet right now, so there's tons of useful stuff that's available online. There's lots of cool things you can do. You can meet really interesting people. You can, you can build friendships. You can, you can make a living online. All of those things are just as true, and maybe more true than, there's scary stuff and bad actors online. So I hope I've empowered you with some tools that can help you stay safe online and be, make wise decisions, but also just, but also feel a little freer to explore online and do, and try a lot of, and use it as a tool to make your life better. And I hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will hopefully see you in another